Hey, it's Alex from Xgrowth. I know, it's been a while. I've been pretty busy though. Currently, I'm producing the 2023 State of Account-Based Marketing in APAC report, with a focus on illuminating the current trends, strategies, and growth of account-based marketing in APAC. The report is going to be a vital resource for marketers navigating this dynamic area. So, are you keen to get involved? We have a survey that is completely anonymous and will only take a few minutes of your time. We'll be analysing the results and seeing how much ABM has changed in the region over the past 12 months. As a thank you, once the report is complete, I will personally mail you a pre-release hard copy. You can also download the ABM Essentials pack I've put together immediately after completing the survey. There's a link to the survey in the comments, but you can also go to xgrowth.com.au/survey. That's xgrowth.com.au/survey. The more responses, the better the report, so please share it with anyone you think could benefit from the report. Okay, let's get to the show.
What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I'm Shane Hoda with Xgrowth, and today I'm talking to Andrew Fitzgerald, Vice President, Global ABM at Kyndryl, about the differences between running ABM for a SaaS organization versus a service-based organization. On that note, let's dive in. Andrew, thanks a lot for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
The first question that I have is, Kyndryl is a large organization, separated from IBM, but it is relatively a young organization. I guess on the back of that, the question that I have is, obviously in this young organization, starting ABM could be a bit of a challenging process. My question is, where did you start building the ABM function at Kyndryl?
Okay, great question. Thank you. So you're right, we're a relatively young organization in some ways. We actually formed in November 2000 and November 18 months ago, and roughly speaking. And but IBM, the company that we split from, announced it was going to happen probably 12 months or so before that. And as we started to prepare for that split, within the marketing team, we obviously had to make some choices about what we wanted to build, what we were going to look like, what our priorities would be. And given the nature of our business, we decided relatively early on that ABM was going to be an important play for us, because we have we're in a space where we're a large complex organization working with other large complex corporations. And it's whilst we have thousands of customers, the ones who are really, really fundamental to our future can probably be numbered in the hundreds. So we knew that we needed to focus on getting our organization back to growth. And to do that, the growth of our most important, most valuable customers was key. So that kind of situation lended itself very well to an account-based marketing approach. Our challenge, at least in the short term, is not about acquiring hundreds or thousands of new customers. It's about growing the customers that we have. It's about taking advantage of our incumbency. It's about taking advantage of the work that we already do to extend into new spaces. That's something that's absolutely right for ABM. So early on, it was apparent to us that it was an important play for us. We got started by bringing together a few people that had an interest in the space and a willingness to experiment. So we started experimenting with a few accounts, literally less than 10, just to try and figure out how we might develop the approach, figure out how to make it work, try and get some early successes. And based on that, we then grew to expand it to more customers, figure out what the basis of our approach would be. But the kind of classic advice, if you read any of the many books, blogs, literature about ABM, start small and grow. And that's what we tried to do at the very outset.
Okay. So starting with less than 10 accounts, focusing on existing customers, did you have much difficulty selling the idea internally, or it was like, everyone's coming from the IBM world, everyone's like, ABM, of course, that makes sense. That's what we're gonna go. Was kind of selling the idea and the approach one of the things that you had to focus on, or that was kind of like that maturity was already there within the organization?
On the a bit of both. On the one hand, the story that one of the stories that our CMO tells is of first meeting with Martin Schroeter, who's our CEO, and he absolutely bought into ABM and had a vision of ABM for the organization and how he wanted to use that to develop a really deep understanding of our customers based on data, use that understanding to figure out how to get our organization back to growth. So on the one hand, it was a relatively easy sell from that perspective. Having your CEO interested in it creates some interesting challenges in itself sometimes. But of course, there's lots of other people in the organization, and they all need to be bought into what we're trying to do as well. And that can be people in our sales organization, across the rest of the organization, and within the marketing team itself. Where as I talk to peers doing ABM in other organizations, one of the things that I think that's very apparent to me is, and maybe this is true about marketing generally, not just ABM, that there's a need to constantly not sell, but constantly prove the value. So we have regular reviews with our stakeholders in the business, and that for us is all about showing the value of what we do. And sometimes we get asked very difficult questions. Sometimes, not everything is perfect, but it's the fact that we have a great review with our company president one day doesn't mean that in a month's time or a quarter's time, we're not going to have to go through the process again and demonstrate the value that we've continued to provide. So we had good buy-in from the outset, but it's something that we continually need to demonstrate the value of all the time.
Got it. And obviously, ABM takes time, and that people forget that it's like 6 months down the line. What is going on with that? I totally see that. What are some of the areas of ABM at Kyndryl that, in your opinion, might be different compared to some of the other companies?
Okay, a few things. First of all, one of the things that we built early in the program was a platform that we call LTV, lifetime value. It isn't really about lifetime value, just the name that we happen to use internally, but it is a data-based platform to help us understand our customers better, both where they are today and the future potential. And it marries a lot of internal data, and we hold lots and lots of data, as you can probably imagine, on our customers and what's going on with them and what's in their infrastructure. And we buy in external data to help us get a rounded view. Our customer, their IT estate, both hardware and software and services that they use, and use that to understand, as I said, the where they are today, where we see the potential value in the future, and use that to inform the customers that we prioritize, who we choose to have in our ABM program, but also it's used across the business in a number of ways, to help determine how and where we deploy resources outside of marketing as well.
Right.
So really understand the current and future value of a customer, and prioritize that for the program, but then at the individual account level, where do we see the opportunity for growth? Where do we see the adjacent spaces to where we are today? Where do we see the issues that we can help customers to address? And therefore, what do we need to do, or where do we need to work to get back to that growth position that's our ambition for the short term? LTV's
Wow. I mean,
yeah, sorry.
That's one thing, and I want to come back to the other things that are on your list. But I mean, that is a massive undertaking, and you hear quite often people talking about that. That's a big challenge. Like, oh, how do you do ABM when you have bad data? How do you do ABM when I don't have access to all the data? This sounds like it was more of like a business initiative rather than the ABM team saying we got to build this thing. Is that a fair assessment, or was it really like an ABM initiative?
Yeah, it wasn't an ABM initiative. It was a business initiative. It was led by, it wasn't even just the ABM team, it was the marketing team pulling it together. But yes, absolutely, that was not just for ABM, not just for marketing. It's as you said, it's a business initiative delivering value for across the business.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I would imagine that took a fair bit of time to. Was that infrastructure already there, or really was like starting from scratch?
Well, it's never starting from scratch entirely, but it was. So some elements of the infrastructure were there. Obviously, a lot of the data was there, but this is going on in an environment when we're separating from what was our parent organization, IBM at the time. So there's a whole bunch of changes going on right across our infrastructure as an organization, which, by the way, is still going on because it's so big and so complex. So there's lots of things to negotiate. Getting the data in the right place to be able to aggregate it together, be able to import the external data that you need, smash it together. You can tell I'm not a particular... Smash
That's
it together.
A technical term.
That's
a technical term. ABM marketers, if you want to talk to technical teams, that's the lingo you got to use. Love it.
Yeah, so it was a significant undertaking, and one that has delivered us value and will continue to deliver value in the future. And by the way, we've still got lots of scope to use this in other bits of the organization too. We're working very closely with our broader go-to-market team at the moment to really take even more advantage of that as we think about how we do account planning, not just for our ABM accounts, but for all our accounts across the organization, and how we use that to help make better decisions, right across the board.
Got it. Okay, so the data visualization, building the LTV is obviously one of the areas that Kyndryl has probably a more mature and different approach than other organizations. What else comes to mind?
So there's a few other things. One is, again, as I talk to peers in other organizations, perfectly understandably, ABM is something that is extra, is an add-on to what they do as a marketing team. Let's start doing ABM. Let's hire some people. Let's give some people the mission and go do it alongside what we've already always done. And of course, I exaggerate a little bit here, but partly because of the unique situation we're in that we're a young organization, but we've got decades worth of history from when we were part of IBM. But we get the chance to almost start from scratch in many ways. And ABM is absolutely core to our marketing, how we understand success as a marketing organization. It's not the only thing, but when I look at our overall marketing plan for this year, the outcomes that we talk about for the marketing plan in its entirety are about reputation, relationships, and we used to talk about revenue, but we got very specific on that. For us as a services organizations, it's about signings, which is the precursor to revenue for an organization like ours. So the ABM, we're really trying to embed ABM as the core of how we do marketing. And yes, of course, we had a brand to build, and we still have a brand to build. And that was a big priority for us and in the very early days of our organization, and continues to be. But our emphasis is really about account growth, fundamentally. That's what the mission of the organization as a whole is, and that's what marketing is there to help drive and support as well.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So ABM is like baked into the core of the organization. It's just fascinating. I was reading something about Snowflake where they were talking about the same thing, where they were saying, all the way from the CEO, we talk account based. Our whole GTM is account based. Everything is revolving around an account based model. So and it's not like, oh yeah, we do ABM here as well on the side. So I love that. Okay, what else? What else is on that list?
What else is on that list? So I've mentioned it already, I think, but ABM for us is very much about existing accounts. And again, lots of organizations tend to talk about ABM as a new customer acquisition play. Not that I'm not suggesting for a minute there's anything wrong with that. And we do absolutely have teams looking to acquire new accounts. But again, because of the position we're in, because of the organization we are, our route to growth in the short term is about growing our existing accounts. So that's very much what the marketing team is working on as well. We do have a few exceptions where in our ABM program, we will consider working with a potential new logo customer, but it's very much an exception. We're pretty much all about growing existing customers. And I think the last thing I would say that makes us different from many organizations is how we talk about the success or otherwise of the program. For us, we're really clear. We don't talk about MQLs and SQLs. We don't talk about marketing attribution. We don't talk about how did that tactic perform. Of course, we do as we get kind of really intense on things. But we're really clear. The ABM program is about growing customers. If we grow those customers, as I said at the beginning, we're successful. And that's marketing and sales together, the organization as a whole. So for us, that would not just marketing and sales, but big delivery teams working on accounts as well. Our goal is growing those accounts. We do that, we win or we lose together. Is a friend of mine who runs ABM for ServiceNow, Gemma Davis. Early on in my ABM journey, she spoke about the culture she was trying to build, which was this idea of we win or we lose together. And I love that. And it's something that I continue to strive to make happen for Kyndryl. So that would be the last bit, I think.
Love it. That's very critical. And it's just, it is hard to get to that point. Sometimes one team doesn't perform well. Sometimes another team does not come to the table. So getting to that, the nirvana of ABM sounds amazing.
We all whenever we talk about what we're doing in our companies, we all try and paint the positive picture, and everything's perfect.
No, I mean,
everything's
absolutely. There's everybody has challenges, right? And it's just important to learn from one another. Hence, we're doing this podcast. One question that I wanted to ask you is, can we talk about, you said you started with 10 accounts. What does the program look like now? How many accounts does it include? How does that structure look like? Are there like multiple tiers? How has it evolved over time?
To use another cliche that I don't like very much, we've been on a journey. As I said, we started with less than 10 accounts. We saw some early success, so we were very gung-ho at let's scale this fast. Let's do as much as we can as quickly as we can. And we worked with our country organizations, and we ended up, I think, with somewhere between 70 and 80 accounts as we were really beginning to get going, rapidly realizing that a number of those were mistakes for one reason or another, and scaled it back. And in our first full year of operation, we worked with 50 accounts. Was really what it boiled down to. Spread right across,
and that was worldwide.
Worldwide, absolutely. So those 50 accounts, as we got to a mature state where we could look back and really try and understand performance, we saw success this year. So our financial year starts on 1st of April, so we're kind of just over a quarter into our latest financial year, and we've now doubled the size of the program. Effectively, we have just over 100 accounts in our program, and you know what? It may go up a little bit more, may come down a little bit again. These things need to be agile enough and responsive enough to be able to move around. But we've just been through a very comprehensive exercise of looking at our existing accounts, which ones do we want to keep in the program, which ones do we want to take out, and which are the new ones that we want to bring in. And because we've got that good, solid base of experience now, we've got a better understanding of what makes the right accounts, where we think we can make a difference, what conditions need to be like to enable us to be successful. So yeah, now just over 100 accounts.
Amazing. Are these 100 accounts are all in, how do you define them in terms of how you're approaching them? Are they all like all one-to-one ABM, strategic ABM? Are they like one-to-few? Are they in kind of like bigger buckets? How do you approach prioritizing them?
Okay, great question. Relatively hot topic for me. And so the first thing to say is we don't do one-to-many. That's not our business. We're not interested. Not interested is the wrong word, but it's not appropriate for our business. That's not the kind of business we're in. The 50 accounts that we spoke about, I would really characterize as one-to-one when we were doing it last year. And yeah, sometimes it wasn't all strictly speaking one-to-one, because some of our ABM, some of our field marketers had more than one customer, and we did have some little clusters of accounts in some places. But fundamentally, the approach was a one-to-one approach. We started out realizing that we wanted to scale it further, and of course, we're not looking to add new people, and we're not looking to spend any more money overall as an organization. So, how do we double the number of accounts that we want to cover? Inevitably, that led us to talking about one-to-few and clusters and how we make that work. So the honest answer is we're doing one-to-few, because pretty much all of our field marketers have a few accounts that they're doing ABM for. However, as I've really dug into this, one-to-few is really just one-to-one, in my view, because you can't get, and maybe this is one of the differences in an organization like ours compared to some others, that we still need to really deeply understand those customers. You still need to really think about how you're going to prioritize. You still need to figure out what the value proposition is that you want to take to those accounts. You can't skimp the steps that you need to go through. And we started with this belief that, hey, a bank is a bank is a bank. And, they all have a need to modernize their IT infrastructure. So, let's cluster the banks together and we can do it that way.
Smash them in that cluster.
But you know what? They all start from different places. Their IT infrastructure is all different. There may be similarities, but it's all different. They all have different approaches to how they want to modernize that infrastructure. They all have different priorities within that. They all use different language and different approaches to want to do it. And so whilst superficially, it's very easy to cluster accounts, in a business like ours, it's very difficult to do that in a meaningful way, because our answer, on the one hand, is let's stick to the example of modernizing infrastructures. Our answer for lots of the challenges for organizations will be, we will help you modernize your infrastructure. We'll help you move away from traditional architectures onto the cloud. We'll help you, manage your security within that, and all the different elements that an organization needs to think about. But what we actually end up doing for bank number one is going to be quite different for what we end up doing for bank number two, based on their circumstances. So we do one-to-few, but it really is a one-to-one approach in most respects. And that puts a lot of pressure on the people. How do you actually make that work? And that's something we're still figuring out. And if anybody out there listening to this has great ideas. I'd love to talk to them because maybe I'll come back in 12 months' time and we'll tell you how we really got on with trying to make this work, because it's not easy.
That will be a fascinating conversation, because I know a lot of even our agency side, we have people who come in and they're like, yeah, I'm looking at like maybe some net new acquisition in this space, and we have a bunch of existing customers that we're looking at expanding, and I usually have to like hold them off, and I'm like, look, if you're talking about expansion of new existing customers, almost all of those, every single one of those is like a whole different ballgame. So you got to think of it as individually, almost as like a campaign per account. Don't go and say, yeah, we got a bunch of, existing customer we got to expand. Let's just put them in one bucket. Boy, that's gonna go sour really quickly. So that is very fascinating and very interesting to hear later on, scaling 100 accounts globally in really a one-to-one model. How does that look like? On the back of that, Andrew, we've touched on some. You've kind of talked about the fact that there were, at the beginning, you started with maybe 70, 80 accounts, and they were understanding that you realized that some of them were not right, and you had to change those. My question is, what are some of the mistakes that you came across in this 18 months as part of the ABM that you realize, oh, well, we shouldn't have done that? What are some of the things that come to mind from a mistake perspective?
We didn't make any mistakes.
None whatsoever.
None at all. We learnt some things quite painfully sometimes, but
what were some of the challenges? Some of the challenges that you faced?
So I spoke already about picking the right customers, and I think we've learnt a lot about choosing the right customers. And hey, even now, I'm sure we'll pick some customers that will turn out to be not the right choices for the long term, and we'll have to drop them. Sometimes that's what's going on in a customer themselves. One of the accounts which we picked recently in Australia actually was, on the face of it, looked like a really good choice, but pretty soon after we made that choice, the customer made a very significant change in direction about their approach and who they wanted to partner with, not from our perspective, but for other infrastructure suppliers, which impacted the choice. So sometimes, customers will change direction, which means it's not good. A lot of the time as well, it was, and I know this is a classic thing that lots of people encounter, it was about working with the account teams, the business teams, the sales teams on those accounts, and really getting the right buy-in and the right attention from the rest of the team working with an account. We all know, I think, or hope we all know, that ABM is not just a marketing thing. It's a marketing and a sales and a solutioning and a delivery and all the other bits of your organization coming together to be successful. And if you don't have the buy-in and active engagement and support from those teams, you can't make it work sometimes. And often that's not because they don't want to. It's because they've got other priorities and other things that need to be fixed within an account. So a lot of the times we had to roll back because we didn't have that support. And you're thinking that, yeah, we know it will be better tomorrow. We know we can persuade them this is the right thing to do. Yeah, sometimes that works, but often, I think marketing people tend to be optimists a lot of the time, and sometimes that optimism doesn't always turn out to be well-founded, perhaps. So we learned a lot going through those kind of cycles. The other thing one relatively minor thing, first of all, we started that whole sales and marketing together thing. We started out saying, you know what, we're not going to call it account-based marketing because that has some particular connotations. We really want the organization to think that this is not just a marketing thing. So we're going to call it account-based engagement. And that's what we called it. And remember, I said our CEO was interested in ABM and wanted to talk about ABM and regularly does with our CMO. the term ABE, account-based engagement, just never stuck. Whenever we were talking with our stakeholders in the business, we would talk ABE and they would say, yeah, so this account-based marketing thing, really interesting. Tell me, we gave up. It's account-based marketing. It's easier that way. There's more than enough things to explain without having to try and do that. So ABE versus ABM, that was turned out to be a mistake, a trivial one, relatively speaking, but nevertheless maybe an interesting one. But the other big one, I think, was not paying enough attention to the numbers and the ROI. And by that, I mean, we were spending all our time focusing on the what needs to be done and believing that, hey, we do these things right. We focus on building reputation. We focus on engaging with the right people in an account and building the relationships, that the numbers are going to come without really thinking it properly through. That's great, but how are we going to measure it? How are we going to show the return on investment to our organization clearly, crisply, in a way that our business leaders understand, buy into, and support? And if I were doing it again, that's the one thing I would really do differently, which is that I would have a much clearer view in my mind and within the organization about exactly how we're going to measure that ROI. And start that measurement sooner. Now, you said already, ABM is a long-term thing. Certainly in a business like ours, you don't see that return on investment in 3 months or 6 months, or even 12 months sometimes. But you've got to be very clear about what that is, where you're going, what that ROI needs to look like, and how you're going to measure on the way to it. And we've got a lot better at that over the past 6 months or so. But for a long time, it was quite a painful thing. And had we started sooner, it would have been less painful.
And I think that's a very important point. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, because I think this is a challenge that a lot of individuals face when they're looking at ABM. And I'm very curious if you are able to share any additional information of how do you measure the success? I mean, we did talk about the relationship and reputation and signing, but when it comes to basically rubber hitting the ground, how do you measure that? And what do you show the business that, hey, here are the numbers?
Yeah, great question. We, like most organizations, I'm sure, we measure lots of things. We have some proxies that we use for reputation, and we're working on some other things as an organization as well at the moment. For a relatively young organization whose name is not necessarily well known, it's really important that we get visibility of what we do. And so we look at a bunch of things which probably go a bit too deep to go into now, but we look at, so what are the things we can measure around reputation? And for us, a lot of the time, that is how we show up externally in our partnership with the customers that we work with. So we look at things that we do across social media. We look at how we show up at events, and we try and look at the impact of some of that. On relationships, we work relationship maps with account teams. We try and figure out who we know, who we don't know, but we need to know, and measure the strength of those relationships. And we do that together with our sales teams fundamentally, and delivery teams a little bit. And then on the I'll call it the revenue piece, but as I said earlier, for us it's the signings piece, and that gives it away. Pipeline and signings, as it is for many organizations in our kind of space, is the fundamental thing. And I was recently doing a business review with probably our most important stakeholder a few weeks ago, talking through the latest set of numbers. And I had a page full of numbers across relationships and reputation and signings and pipeline and all this stuff. And one of the things I'll remember for a long time is his company president said to me, there's one number on this page that I care about, just one, and that's the signings number. Lots of other things mattered to us and to him as well, I know, but because signings is just a precursor to revenue. You've got to turn those signings into revenue, and you've got to be able to do that profitably. And all of those things are key. But when it comes to the performance of this program, it's about signings. And here's why we chose to double the number of ABM accounts after going through quite a painful process to really understand ROI. We looked at the performance of ABM accounts compared to comparable non-ABM accounts for us. ABM accounts performed 32 percentage points better than comparable accounts. And you know what? As we've continued to look at this, that differential grows over time. So our ABM accounts significantly outperform non-ABM accounts. Is that down to the events that we do, or the digital stuff that we do, or how we build reputation in those accounts, or any of the other individual things that we do? I don't know. All I know is that together with the journeys that we drive with our sales teams, with the rest of our marketing colleagues, we manage to grow those accounts significantly faster. Now, maybe we just pick accounts that would have grown faster anyway. Maybe all of this would happen without an ABM program in place, but I doubt it, because the other kind of less obvious but really important thing that I care about is what I hear back from our customer partners, who are the people who manage the relationship, are ultimately accountable for what we do for our customers and the profit or loss and the revenue that we generate from those accounts. Pretty much unanimously, for the accounts that we work with, they rave about not just the field marketer that they work with who's driving ABM for them, but the way marketing shows up in a completely different way than they have been used to or seen before, and the difference it makes for their accounts. And whether that's helping to drive a big new renewal or a big new deal, whether that's helping them to get to engage with people they've never been able to talk to before, or any of the other things that we try and achieve within an account, that's fundamentally what it amounts to. So ultimately, it's about signings and the ROI that we manage to deliver based on that, but also it's about what our key stakeholders see and value on the ground all the time.
That is the best feeling when sales comes and says, we love what marketing is doing. I mean, it's almost in the marketing world, I want to say there's no such thing better when you get acknowledgement like that from sales team. And that's fantastic. Last question, and we've touched on a lot of different areas where ABM could be different in the services space. But I want to ask this question, if there is something that we maybe haven't touched on that you think it would be worth covering, and that is, what are your thoughts about the differences between SaaS-based organizations doing ABM and service-based organizations doing ABM? We've talked about a number of things. We've talked about this very strong focus on customers. We've talked about kind of the performance, looking at the performance between ABM and non-ABM. But is there anything else that come to mind in terms of that difference, running ABM into those two different type of organizations?
You're right. I think we've touched on a lot of things already. I think that as I do try and spend quite a bit of time talking to peers running ABM in their organizations. And in fact, I was talking to one of those people yesterday in a not technology at all, but another services organization. And one of the things we agree on, and I see this from my peers in services companies, is it's not about technology for us. And a lot of the conversation in ABM circles is about technology and how to use technology to deliver your ABM program. And there's loads of it out there. And I'm not saying it isn't important, and I'm not saying we don't use it, because we do. But fundamentally, we are a people business and a relationships business. And I think that's what services businesses usually are. And therefore, it's all about how we engineer relationships or enable relationships between Kyndryl's people and our customers, because that's where the magic happens. And so for us, it's all about people. As a business ourselves, at Kyndryl, we talk about marrying people and technology because that's what we do for our customers. And and that parallel works really well for ABM too. I think it's about people and technology. But for me, it always leaned. What's really important in the success of the ABM program? Lots of things, but great people are really at the heart of it. The thing I really care about more than anything else is how do we get the best field marketers that we possibly can to go and work with our account teams, because they could, with or without technology, they enable the return on investment that ultimately we need. So as I compare that to what I hear from vendors and from platform companies and from SaaS companies, a lot of the time the talk is about new customer acquisition and how we're deploying the latest technology to be able to achieve what we want to out of our ABM program. That, as I said, I'm not saying it isn't important, but it's a distant second priority to me compared to the importance of having the right people, the right culture, enabling them well, giving them the right education and skills to be able to do what they need to do as an organization. So I think that for me is really, really fundamental. It's if we can get that right, the rest follows. And I'm not sure I necessarily see that in lots of other organizations doing ABM.
Get the people part right.
Do you want to be a part of something great and receive greatness in return? Well, with the help of Media Collateral, Xgrowth is creating the State of Account-Based Marketing in APAC report for 2023. Be a part of this industry study and get the opportunity to win a free consultation with Xgrowth's ABM experts on how you can optimize your ABM strategy. And all it takes is filling out the survey located in the pod description. Want to hear about more greatness? Well, by filling out the survey, you'll get immediate access to download our ABM Essentials Pack and get an exclusive pre-release copy of the report. So what are you waiting for? Click the survey link to get started.
Okay, this is a great chat.
Let's
Let's do some rapid fire questions. Let's do some rapid fire questions before we wrap up. Okay, so the first question I want to ask is, what is one resource? This could be a book, a blog, a podcast, whatever comes to mind that has had a profound impact on the way you work or live.
I really struggled to pick one thing, so I'm not going to, because one of the
I'll take couple.
Okay, so one of the great things about working in big organizations like the ones I've been lucky enough to work in is you get access to lots of education and skills development resources and so on. And one of the most profound things for me was the idea of a growth mindset. And lots of people talk about it in lots of different ways, but it's something that, I don't know, it's some years ago now when I first came across the term, when I first began to understand what it means, the way it really enables you to reframe and rethink about how to approach work, life, just the principles that underlie that for me were, sparked new ways of thinking and new ways of behaving. And that went along with, at the time, I was getting very interested in, as an organization, we were getting very interested in the notion of agile and how we deployed agile methodologies in how we do marketing. And all of that stuff coming together really changed my attitude to how I work and how I operate. And so it's not a book or a blog or a podcast. There are lots of people talking about that, but it's those ideas really that
growth mindset. Love it. Okay. Question 2, if you could only give one advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
It's about team. It's about collaboration. You can't do anything on your own. And for that is about teaming with your salespeople, your account team, all the people there. But it's also about teaming with the rest of your colleagues in the marketing organization. You can't do anything great on your own. You've got to do it together. That would be my one.
So all other people. Love it. Question 3. Who are some of the influencers in this space that you follow or you talk to, or you kind of see what they're talking about?
I've been lucky enough to get to know Bev Burgess a little bit. The I'm not sure she likes the term, but the godmother of ABM. And I've said this to her on calls as well. But where I sit in my home office, I literally have Bev's book beside me all the time.
Love it.
It's kind of an essential reference guide for me. So Bev would be one, but then there are lots of others. As I said, I get lots of value personally from trying to engage with what's now a very big and very active community of people interested in ABM. People like Andrea Clapworthy, who works for Fujitsu and used to, until recently, ran their global ABM program. I mentioned Gemma Davis already, but there's a whole host of other people in the Momentum ITSMA community, in the B2B marketing community, run out of the UK and the US these days. The more the merrier, because one of the things I find is talking to any and all of those people, I always learn stuff. And sometimes, it's validation of what we're already doing. Sometimes it's great ideas that you can take into your own organization. So loads of them.
Fantastic. Last question I have is, what is something that excites you about B2B today?
I was gonna say AI, but again, everybody's talking about AI and the possibilities of AI and how to use it. So I'll come back to what I think, in hindsight, looking back now, is probably the theme of my thing. It's about the people. As I look in our organisation, God, we've got an absolutely amazing team of field marketers and ABM-ers making it happen. As I look at outside of our organisation, the great work that's being done by loads of great individuals now is amazing. So it's seeing what the people are going to do, I think, that excites me the most. Sounds a little bit trite, but genuinely that's what it is.
No, I completely understand. It's exciting to work with smart and capable people, no doubt about it. Andrew, this was an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and giving us your time.
It's my pleasure. Great to talk to you.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make the show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at XGrowth. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just keen for a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.